You can be the most technically gifted footballer on the pitch. You can beat defenders, hit 40-yard passes, and score from 30 yards. But all of that can become almost useless if you don't understand where to find your teammate for a pass or how to find space for a shot. Because football doesn't start when the ball reaches your feet. It starts several seconds before that. And today, I want to show you what real football intelligence actually is, why it makes some players incredibly effective while others are simply good, and most importantly, how you can start developing it yourself. Give me 10 minutes, and I promise that after this video, you'll start looking at football a little differently. Let's go. When inexperienced players are asked what makes a footballer great, they usually mention technique, speed, shooting, dribbling, or passing. And that makes sense. Those are the things we notice first. We see a beautiful skill, we see a pass across the entire pitch, we see an incredible goal. But there's one problem. All of these things are just tools. The most important thing is knowing exactly when to use each one. You can have perfect technique, but if you choose the wrong decision at the wrong moment, your technique won't help you. You can make a perfect 30-yard pass, but if the situation actually requires a one-touch pass through the middle, that perfect pass becomes completely useless. And this is where football intelligence comes in. Football intelligence isn't about how well you can execute a football action. It's about how quickly and correctly you understand which action you need to take right now. And to really understand the difference, let's break down a moment involving Pedri. Pause the video for a few seconds and try to figure out what is about to happen. Pedri receives the ball. He has several options in front of him. He can play out wide, he can pass the ball backwards, or he can try to move forward. At first glance, there's nothing unusual here. But now, watch him again. And most importantly, don't watch the ball. Watch Pedri's head. Where is he looking? And this is where things get interesting. Pedri already knows where he's going to play the ball, and the player he's about to pass to is barely even visible in our frame. It's Lamine Yamal. Pedri notices him before most viewers even realize that Yamal is in that open space. And instead of taking the obvious short pass, he chooses a long ball forward. But this is where most people would stop watching the play. The pass is made, great. But for Pedri, the play isn't over. Watch what he does immediately after the pass. He starts moving forward. Why? Because he already understands what is going to happen next. He sees the space behind Real Madrid's players, and he starts attacking it before he even receives the next pass. As a result, Pedri finds himself in open space, no pressure, and he receives the ball exactly where he wants it. And then comes the part we usually remember, the shot, the goal. And most people would say, what an incredible goal from Pedri. But if we analyze this moment properly, the goal is actually far from the most interesting part. The important thing happened before it. Pedri didn't just finish well, he didn't just make a beautiful pass. He understood in advance which decision would start the entire sequence. That is football intelligence.
But what exactly is football intelligence made of? There are three qualities that have a huge impact on how well a footballer makes decisions. First, awareness. Second, decision-making speed. And third, understanding the game itself. And if even one of these elements is missing, your football intelligence starts to break down. Let's start with the first one, awareness. Imagine this situation. You receive the ball. There are three teammates in front of you. One is on the right, one is on the left, and another is making a run through the middle. If you only see the player on the right, you basically have one option. But if you see all three, you suddenly have a choice. And the more options you can see, the more likely you are to find the right one. That's why the best midfielders are constantly scanning the pitch. They're not only watching the ball, they're looking around them. They're collecting information before they even receive the ball. And this is one of the simplest things you can start training today. Before every touch, force yourself to look over your shoulder once, then again. Look for the defender, look for your teammate, look for the space. Because once the ball is already at your feet, you might have only 1 second to make a decision. But if you've collected the information beforehand, that 1 second becomes a huge advantage. Now let's move on to the second quality, decision-making speed. A lot of footballers actually have good awareness, but this is where the problem begins. They think for too long. Should I pass or take him on? Should I play forward or backwards? Should I control the ball or play it first time? And while they're making the decision, the moment is already gone. Football is incredibly fast. That's why sometimes the right decision made half a second earlier is much more valuable than the perfect decision made too late. And there's one thing I want to challenge here. Some people say fast decision-making is a natural talent. You either have it or you don't. No. Of course, people have different natural abilities, but decision-making speed can be trained. And here's one exercise you can try. Take any book, read 1 page, then set a timer for 30 seconds. And in those 30 seconds, try to summarize everything you just read as briefly as possible. Why does this work? Because you're forcing your brain to quickly identify what matters most. And that's exactly what a footballer has to do during a match. He receives an enormous amount of information and has to almost instantly decide what matters most right now. There's another exercise too, chess. Chess constantly forces you to evaluate a situation, search for different options, and make decisions with limited time. And the more you train your ability to process information quickly, the easier it becomes to make decisions on the football pitch. But now we get to the most important part. Because you can see the entire pitch, you can make decisions extremely quickly, and you can still make the wrong decision over and over again. Why? Because you're missing the third element, understanding the game.
Imagine your team is winning 1-0. There are 2 minutes left in the match. You receive the ball. You have an opportunity to move forward. You could take on the defender. You could play a risky pass. But is that actually the right decision? Not necessarily. Maybe your team doesn't need to attack anymore. Maybe you need to keep the ball. Slow the game down. Make the opponent run. That's why football intelligence isn't simply, I see an option. And it isn't simply, I see it quickly. Real football intelligence is I see the option, I understand it quickly, and I know whether it's the right option for this specific situation. And here, I want to give you one very powerful way to develop your understanding of the game. Choose a footballer who plays your position. In my case, that player was Xavi. Watch an entire match, but don't watch it like a normal fan. Every time Xavi is about to receive the ball, pause the video and ask yourself, what would I do right now? Where would I pass? Would I turn? Would I play backwards? Would I play forward? Then press play and see what Xavi actually does. And most importantly, don't just watch his decision, try to understand why he made it. Why did he slow the game down? Why did he play it first time? Why didn't he play forward? Why did he choose that particular teammate? This is how you stop simply watching football and start learning how to think like a footballer. And if we put everything we've talked about together, it becomes a very simple system. First, scan the pitch. Collect information before you receive the ball. Second, learn to make decisions faster. Don't let good opportunities disappear because you spent too long thinking. Third, study the game. Because making the wrong decision quickly is still the wrong decision. And here's the most interesting part. You don't need to become the next Pedri. You don't need to copy Xavi. And you don't need some incredible natural talent. You need to learn one simple thing. Start thinking one step earlier. Look at the space before you receive the ball. Think about your next action before your first touch. Imagine what will happen after your pass. And gradually, you'll notice something strange. The game will start to feel slower.
Defenders will seem less dangerous. You'll feel like you have more time. But in reality, you don't have more time. You're simply using it earlier. And that's what separates a good footballer from a truly intelligent one. Most players start thinking when the ball is already at their feet. The best players start thinking before that. And if after today's video you start looking at football this way, your football IQ really will become much higher. If you enjoyed this breakdown, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Here, we don't just watch football. We break down the things most viewers don't even notice. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.